What if the secret to success wasn't just talent or hard work, but unshakable confidence? Welcome to Grasp Confidence, the podcast where visionary thought leaders, speakers, and entrepreneurs unlock the mindset and strategies for lasting success. I'm your host, LaFon Gooch, CEO, two-time best-selling author, and international TEDx speaker, and I can't wait to help you step into the most powerful version of yourself. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. You know me, I'm your host, LaFon Gooch, and I have a special guest with us today. But first, I want to tell you something exciting that I have been working on. It is a Christian women's leadership retreat, and it's happening in Cabo, St. Lucas in January of 2026. It's all-inclusive luxury, plus connection to community, like-minded people, and our creator. It's the best thing in the world. Plus, I'm giving everybody some visibility and branding awareness chances to increase their impact and income in this world. Now, let's get into our guest today. Since most of our audience are high-performing leaders and peak performers, this is for you. What if peak performance wasn't just about strategy, but about identity? Think about that and let that sink in. Meet Melissa D. Whitaker, CEO, international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and leading authority in sales, leadership, culture, and wellness. With over 30 years of experience, Melissa has trained thousands of professionals and helped companies unlock higher revenue, stronger team synergy, and purpose-driven leadership. She's also co-authored bestsellers alongside legends like Brian Tracy. In this episode, Melissa and I will dive into things like mindset, gratitude, and key performance in leadership to unlock the true keys of sustainable success in business and how confidence is the catalyst that transforms it all. Melissa, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes. It's not every day that I interview somebody with your resume and just business acumen. I can't wait to dive into this because I want this to be a masterclass in not just strategy, right? Because
Right.
I think when a lot of businesses think they need is another bell, another whistle, another system. But what I have found in my work with business leaders and entrepreneurs is they lack sometimes those foundational elements to really have sustainable success. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because, as you mentioned, I can't tell you how many leaders I've spoken to who said, "Oh, I've been through this program and this program and this program." And I'll ask them, "Well, why are we speaking? If you have been through many different programs, what are you missing, do you feel? What do you think that you are looking for that, secret sauce or that silver bullet?" And it's interesting because as we start to, dive a little deeper into their situation, I find what's really missing half the time is number one, not enough people are talking about mindset, and not enough people are talking about those core growth opportunities. Yes, there's strategy, but if you don't start here and start to up level your mind and the possibilities of abundance or what could be possible in their life or their business, then it doesn't always hold.
Absolutely. I went through this the hard way because I think that's how a lot of us learn, right? It's unfortunate, but it took me a long time. And I really, the thing about entrepreneurship that I've realized, it's a mirror.
Mm.
It shows you the good, the bad, the ugly, and it kind of is the ultimate personal development machine, right?
Yes.
And if you don't have your mindset right, you're going to take such a longer time to achieve your goals. And I find this especially true with women that I work with is they undervalue themselves so much, underprice, all of these things, and then wonder why they're stuck in this cycle of missed opportunities, low income, and low potential. What do you
Mhm.
think?
Yes, I think, I love that you talk about confidence, frankly, because regardless of what position we have, I find that women, especially, don't always stand in their God given confidence and power that He actually anointed us with, frankly. And so, too often, I think we've been brought up in our life to be accommodating, to make sure everyone's okay. And I think what happens though with that is that and many times women don't speak up. They don't share an opinion. And in the world that we live in, our voices as women are so needed. Like our ability that God has given us to be nurturing and compassionate, but yet bold and confident. It's something that, you don't always get sometimes from the other side or from a mixture of scenarios. And so I always tell our leaders, especially our women leaders, listen, your voice matters. Your creativity matters. When you're sitting at in your seat at the table, let's say with men and women, maybe a lot of men, depending on your industry, the reality is you're there for a reason and that you are there on purpose for a purpose. And you wouldn't be there if you weren't supposed to be there, which tells me your opinions matter, your creativity matters, and that you can share things with different perspective that usually isn't in the room. And so I really do try to encourage any leader, female leader that we work with, and of course all leaders, okay, right, but women leaders especially, that they are worth it, that their ideas need to be heard, and that they can give a different perspective than other people can. And I'll give you an example. I was coaching an executive women a leader this morning, and she said, "You know what, Melissa? I was a little intimidated on this last call I went on with the owner of our company and some new potential business opportunity that we were going to speak with. We walked in and it's all men, and they're much older than me." And I said, "Okay." And she said, I'll have to admit, my mind started racing. Why am I here? Should I really be here? Do I have the credibility to be here? Look at this room. And she's a, faith-based woman. She has a relationship with the Lord. And so she said she had to really speak to herself and listen to the Lord and the Holy Spirit say to her, "Yes, of course you're supposed to be in this room. You wouldn't be in this room if you didn't have the abilities and a different perspective than the rest of the men in the room." And so we had a conversation about that today, and I was just really affirming her and reminding her that everything that the Lord has brought her to this point is for a reason. And that even though she's a woman and maybe she's much younger than a lot of different boardrooms that she walks into, that to really walk in with this anointing and walk in with this ability to say, that she matters. And of course they matter. And that just have that unshakable confidence. And so it was really neat to see really her light up, to have someone like, let's say myself as another woman leader, building into her as a woman leader to say, you've got what it takes. And the Lord puts us in positions to stretch, right? I mean, I learned, like, if you are uncomfortable, you're probably in the right place, because the Lord puts us in rooms where we are supposed to stretch and grow so that we can start to do and accomplish what He has us there to do and accomplish. And that made a lot of sense to her.
So right on. I remember my time in corporate, I would see plenty of high qualified women. And what were they doing in a boardroom? What were they doing in any given meeting? They were, yes,
Taking
there
notes.
was, you said it before me. They were the scribe. Melissa, come on. And
Right.
instead of speaking up, instead of raising their head, instead of giving an opinion, they were taking notes and shrinking. And what does it look like when you're taking notes? You're actually smaller.
Yeah.
Nobody can see you. Nobody can connect with your eyes.
Right.
It's so important. And if we teach women how to show up in confidence, again, I like how you mentioned it too. And it what you're talking about is an embodiment. We're not talking about faking it. We're not
Right.
trying to be saying you need to act like somebody else. We're talking about stepping into your God given identity
Yeah.
with purpose. That's
Hmm.
powerful, Melissa.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, I just love that. I think that in the world we live in, isn't it true that we need to take responsibility ourselves as women leaders to speak and a mentor to other women around us and vice versa. And I think that's one area that I find is not at the level I wish it was. I feel like guys are actually pretty good about supporting each other and kind of having the old boy, the kind of the good old boys network. And I've always asked through the years, why don't we have a better, strong women network? And they're starting to pop up here and there, right? But the reality is, we should, as women, be celebrating other women more, lifting each other up, mentoring other women to come through and have that resiliency and that innovation and that perseverance that we know we can have, we should have, and that our counterparts definitely have half the time, right? And so I feel like, are we doing our part in creating that, building that, teaching that, and having it kind of be a back and forth situation?
Absolutely. It's such a good point, right? It's, I don't look at anybody as competition,
Yeah. Oh, right.
right? When you're aligned with your unique identity, when you are aligned with your God given purpose, there is no competition. It's only a competition when you are trying to be like somebody else. It's only a competition when you're not aligned with your purpose. And I use this analogy in my first book, How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. The analogy that I use, it's very simple. If our human body, let's say we take any cell in our body, and this would be the similar thing to in an organization for a company, and we take an individual cell, let's say it's a heart cell, and it tries to be a skin cell. Well, it's going to fail. It's going to think it's a failure. It's
Mm,
actually not equipped for the task. There's nothing inherently wrong with the cell. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's in the wrong place. It's doing the wrong functions, and it can't do the job at hand. But you take that cell and you put it in the environment that it's designed for according to its purpose, it flourishes. But the interesting thing is, too, if you take that lung cell and it tries to be a skin cell, it's going to be competing,
mm,
right? It's
mm,
competing because it's not equipped for its design. So it's going to be competing, and if the whole body does that, it causes what? Disease, disorganization, disconjoint everything. And eventually the whole system fails.
yeah.
The same thing in an organization, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, it's so interesting because we do a lot of work with individuals and organizations where we provide personalized assessments so that people can see kind of how really, and they may feel like they know, but to see it in writing, how they're wired. And then how does that play out in their position and environment, right? We have one for people who are in sales and they can learn about that themselves, plus how they connect and build trust in the psychology of the buyer. But with leaders, they can see how they're wired and how that impacts how they manage and lead. And I just find that that's so critical because what happens, like you're talking about, are they in the right seat on the right bus? And sometimes I've had to have some hard conversations with people I work with and say, are you really happy with what you're doing? And they have to really look internally and say, because I let them know and say, in some cases, I think some people are thriving. Other people, I'll say, I don't get the feeling that you are alive in this position. And they have to sit with that for a little bit, but then they realize it can be a gift to have that conversation because life is short. And I tell them, look, you're wired in this way, and your current role is requiring things of you that is totally against how you're wired. So in the world we live in, maybe it's the title they think that they wanted to get to, maybe it's the pay. I don't know. Could be both, but they're miserable. I mean, they're like absolutely miserable. And I tell them, listen, I want you to think about what lights you up. And I want you to think about what you love. And I can guarantee to you that there are positions out there that will embrace you, are looking for you. You can still have that great title. You can make great money. Sometimes you can make even more money because you're alive. But life is too short to be stuck in this little kind of like, circle into the peg kind of scenario where you're trying to force things in because of whatever reason. It could be something of friends or family or whatever that said you should be in this position, or the pressures to be something or have your identity tied to a title. But the reality is, when they are doing what they were meant to do, I mean, everything changes. And so I just really encourage people that when they are in the right place and they are doing the right things and they are searching for the right things, then everything does come together and they feel valued, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like excited that they're excelling in their situation. And frankly, they probably get a lot more positive feedback from whatever they're doing from those around them or the company they may work for, because it shines and shows that they're in their element.
Yes, yes, I believe that. And, that's when you become, I'm not saying you're going to become permanently irreplaceable, but you can get a lot closer to that mark because if you're truly aligned with your gifts and your strengths and your purpose, you're going to be the top, the cream of the crop, right? And people are going to lean on you. And if you're not aligned with that, it's everything is going to feel like resistance. It's going to feel like you're swimming upstream. It's going to feel like struggle. I know this so well because I used to think my identity was tied into a title. I used to think it was tied into a salary. I got an MBA because I thought that was what was expected of me. I did these things because I thought I was living somebody else's dream for such a long time in my life. And there's a lot of people that are out there right now that are listening to this and resonating with this, and they're saying to themselves, some part of them at least, is saying, is that me? Am I living somebody else's dream? And it's powerful because, I remember the moment when I said, God, because we all have those moments, Melissa.
We do.
I said, I don't want what I want for myself anymore, because what I want for myself, it sucks, right? I'm not getting anywhere. I felt like I was swimming upstream. I said, I want what you want for me, period. I just want what you want for me, whatever that looks like. I'm here for it. Can I tell you, the next 2 weeks, I think I made more money in my company than I did the whole previous year. That is a fact.
Wow.
In 14 days, I made more money than I did all the previous year because I went from striving to surrendering. I'm getting some head nods. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like anyone who's been an entrepreneur, for instance, or owns their own business, everyone knows there's ebbs and flows, right? There's times where everything's going great. There's times when the rug gets pulled out from underneath them. And when the rug gets pulled out, number one, it can be very frightening, right? Like, what is happening? What did I do wrong? But I like that you just said that about the surrender thing. And I think, like, in my experience, the first time that happened, my company, I've had my organization for 15 years. And I would say 2010 till 2015, for like a 5-year period, we were just growing. But at like halfway through 2015, all of a sudden, the rug got pulled out from underneath us. And I was like in a panic mode, like, what just happened? Why did this happen? And, and I really had to do some soul searching, giving it to God and saying, okay, because my prayer when I started my business was, Lord, if you continually open up doors and contracts, I will do everything you've given me the ability to do. But if you keep opening the doors and contracts, I'll know that you're honoring this so I can honor my family. But if you close the door, I will go back and get that executive job I had before, working, whatever hours I needed to take care of my family. Because previous to my opening my own business, I was working 12 to 16 hours a day away from the home as an executive, running 3 divisions across, 3 different states. And I loved what I did. I loved it, but I had a 2-year-old toddler and another baby on the way. And I said, God, something's going to have to give. And even though at the time in my life, I was the breadwinner of my family, so I knew I didn't have the opportunity just to step back because of, me having another child or something of that nature. But I also knew I needed flexibility. And I also knew that I wanted to be a better mom, and I wanted to be a better wife, and I wanted to still do what I loved and I was passionate about doing. I felt like it was a calling that I should be doing, but I needed to do it on my own terms. And so My prayer back then, though, was, Lord, if you honor this, I'll know you're honoring my family. But if the doors close, I'll go back and get that executive job if I need to. It's not where my heart is. I don't believe that's what you want for me, Lord. I don't think that's what you want for my family, but I'll do whatever it takes to take care of my family. Now, with that being said, when the rug got pulled out halfway through 2015, if I'm going to be told completely honest, I gave it to the Lord and said, are you closing the doors? Okay. I mean, if you are, because we had a great 5-year run, are you closing the doors, Lord? Because if you are, be clear. I'll go back and get that job. But it got really scary trying to pay the bills and the mortgage for our home and all the things that need to happen and the operational expenses for my business. And my right-hand person for the company, to be honest with you, her name was Tammy, very godly woman. I called her, said, Tammy, we have got to pray since for some massive new business, because all the stuff we had literally contracts for 2 months in the future, one by one in 1 week called and had to either put on hold or cancel for unforeseeable reasons, different reasons. And she said, you know what? I'm not going to pray for that. I was like, what? And she's like, I'm going to pray for clarity on why God cleared your deck. Is there something we are supposed to be developing and doing in our business that frankly we never have time to do because we're always working in the business and not enough time on the business? And I was like, whoa, like, okay, wise words. Now, I was still panicking because we still had to make payroll. Okay. But with that being said, the Lord had to walk me through a valley. But he told me that. He said, Melissa, you said you want to have this level impact in the world for my name. You're here right now for your company, your name, your purpose, but you say you want to be here. And he said, do you still want that? And I'm like, oh, this is a loaded question. I said, well, yeah, of course I want that. And he said, well, then you're going to have to trust me. I mean, do you trust me? Because I'm going to have to take you through a valley. It's not going to be comfortable, but to prepare you for what it takes to be here. See, you're not prepared to handle with the stress and the pressure and everything that comes with this level of impact yet. Are you willing to let me take you through a valley to keep working on your character and your resiliency and how well you handle stress and all these things? Are you willing? And I was like, okay, all right. And I'm like, I trust you, Lord. I trust you. And, and every time that I didn't think I could handle anymore, when I'd surrender it to him, but I'd get really panicky. We're in that 9th inning and we still can't pay something or whatever. I'd say, God, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to go get a job. You know what I mean? I'm just going to go get a job. And then all of a sudden, what does he do? He throws you a little contract just for paying the one bill, right? And I said, oh, I knew it was going on. I said, Lord, he said, this is my sign to you to not give up yet. Not yet. And my right-hand person, Tammy, I would say, Tammy, you got to pray. Let's both pray and fast. And let's ask the Lord if it's really just time to hang it up. And we both would come back and she'd say, Melissa, God keeps telling me not yet. I'm like, oh my gosh, not yet. And the Lord kept saying, Melissa, do you trust me? Do you really trust me? And that's a hard place to be. I'm not going to lie. I don't know about you, but for me, I am fully admit I like to be in control. And I know God has to remind me on a fairly regular basis that I am not in control, but I like to be in control. And so there's times where the Lord has to really stop me in my tracks. And he gets my attention. Boy, he does. But he wants me to really get close to him. He wants me to have that quiet chair time every morning and don't get busy immediately in the morning, but spend that time with him. He wants me to surrender it every single day. And he wants me to be creative. And he wants me to innovate. And he wants me to be open to listening to his whispers of what is next, taking day by day. And during this period of time, he did take me through a 1.5 years of a drought valley. Now, we always had business and we always just got by in the business and as a family. We didn't have more than we needed. We had just enough. And it was a long road for a 1.5 years. But during that time, I will tell you, the Lord stripped away a lot of things, though. My mother, who was my closest best friend in the world, she went to heaven, and I didn't understand it because she was the most godly woman. And yet the Lord said, Melissa, listen, your mom has held everybody in her life. I'm not saying I'm going to take her or not, but if I do take her, is it okay if it's your mom's turn to be held? And I was like weeping, but during this time, you can imagine, if business is tricky, finances are tricky, the Lord is stretching, and all of a sudden my mother, who's my closest person, gone. Then my dog of 11 years, a month later, gone. I mean, literally all these close people to me were being taken away. My right-hand person, Tammy, who had been with me from the very beginning, all of a sudden had to move away because her husband got transferred and she couldn't, during that time, she couldn't work for me and she ran the back half of my business. I mean, panic mode, right? So I guess that's the situation when we hear people who are listening today. Look, if you feel like the rug got pulled out, don't always take that as a sign that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Surrender it to the Lord and ask him what he wants you to do. And in some cases, he is using it to stretch you. I mean, to really grow your resiliency and your innovation and your creativity, but you have to be willing to hold the course. And it's not always, though. I mean, sometimes he does close the door and sometimes he opens a different door. So you just have to be really in tuned, in my opinion, to what the Lord is asking us to do, to definitely, as you said, fully surrender it to him. And sometimes we have to surrender it every day because it's difficult. And then we have to just listen and know that God has said he will always be there for us, even if it seems like sometimes he's not there. I remind our clients, especially if they're faith-based, they'll say, I just don't feel like God's there. I can't hear him. I can't feel him. I said, listen, you have to know something. The Lord has made it very clear to me that when the student is taking the test, the teacher is silent. When the student is taking a test, the teacher is silent. And I said, so just remember, if you don't feel him right now, but you feel like you have a good relationship with the Lord, it's not that he's abandoned you, but you might be in the middle of a test. And it's your job to walk with obedience. And when you do that, you'll be rewarded in the end. And so I don't know, I feel like, that's something maybe your listeners, someone in your listeners may need to hear that today.
Yeah, like me. I mean, hello. I love that, right? When the student is taking a test, the teacher is silent. Can everybody please write that down? Honestly, we need that as a billboard because how often in our life are we challenged? We've got adversities. We have, obstacles, trials that come into our life and in our business. And how often are we then reactive to things instead of proactive? And instead of leaning on faith, we lean on our own understanding. And this is why it's so important. I love what you said about praying and fasting. The first thing I do when I have an issue, whether it's in life or business, I pray and I ask God for direction. And, God doesn't shout to us. I know everybody wants that. We want God to have a bullhorn, but that's not how it works. God does not have a bullhorn, but he uses actually a more direct form of communication, which is sometimes our intuition. It's the whisper, like you mentioned as well. And that's the one thing, though, with that, Melissa, is we have to sometimes go into the silence, get rid of the distractions, get rid of the noise, get rid of all these things that we have around our lives that are distracting us from actually hearing God's whispers, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I think it's good to remember what you just talked about there. And that was the Lord speaks to us in many different ways. He speaks to us through music. He speaks to us through someone in our circle that maybe was prompted by the Lord through a whisper or a nudge to reach out to us, doesn't know why, but is just obedient. But whatever they say to us is what we were supposed to hear. I mean, so that's why I want people to remember. It's interesting. I'm part of a women's Bible study, and recently we spoke about this. And just like you said, sometimes people are expecting the Lord to yell at us or be clear or a bullhorn, and we talked about how I had this conversation with a woman I used to work with when I was working for another company. And we worked for a very large company before, back before I had my company. And I happened to come up to the front desk, and she was working at the front desk. And she said, Melissa, oh my gosh, I went to visit a church this weekend. I think I saw you there. And so it just kind of opened up. It was a God moment that God opened up a conversation. And she said, I was brought up in a certain faith, but I'm searching right now to see really how I feel about things. And I said, okay. And she said, I guess what I'm struggling with is I feel like I'm supposed to be seeing a sign. Like I keep asking God for a sign. And we all say that, right? Give me a sign, Lord. Just give me a sign. And I said to her, well, what kind of sign are you looking for? Because, we all know this, miracles are happening every day. The question is, are we actually open and watching, or are we busy in our thing? And so I said to her, what kind of sign are you looking for? And she said, I don't know, something like obvious. I go, like the burning bush in the Bible? Like, are you looking for a burning bush? And she, honestly, it was so funny. She goes, yes, I'm looking for a burning bush. And I said, girl, listen to me. I think that to me is the same as like expecting God to be shouting at us. It's like he says to us, I will speak to you in so many different ways. It doesn't mean it's going to be this like obvious, ginormous burning bush or a meteorite coming down from the sky to be the sign. The signs are, do we have something unexpected said to us by someone else? Do we have an unexpected person, that we run into? Is there an unexpected song that comes on the radio when we're driving and we start weeping? See, though, I told her, that those are the everyday signs. And she just looked at me and was like, whoa, I guess I never thought about it that way. And that's good for all of us, right? Because we do ask for signs. But my question is it a realistic sign? Is it just like open for anything that God may say to you? Or are you looking for something extreme? And unless you see the extreme, you don't think it's a sign, And so that's why I think it's important, that we have that quiet time where we have time just to be with the Lord, to perhaps read part of the Bible or read a devotion, maybe even journal a little bit. But then after that, actually sit doing nothing. Because I will be the first person to tell you, I have not been great in my life sitting still. I don't know about you. You're probably the same way, right?
I will. We're from the same cloth, Melissa.
Right.
Yeah.
So that time, halfway through 2015 and all of 2016, the Lord had to do a lot of work on me, if I'm going to be honest, on learning how to sit still, be 100% present. Because I would come back to him and say, oh, but God, I'm reading my devotions in my Bible. I'm journaling. He's like, but when are you doing nothing? When are you just sitting there waiting and willing to receive? And I thought, oh, geez, okay. Because most of us are doers, right? We're doers. And so that is a foreign concept to me, to sit there and just be and just listen. And then allow whatever the Lord, the Holy Spirit says to take that in. That is not an easy practice for me. I'm not going to lie. And I've gotten better with it over the years. But it was a big adjustment in 2015 and 2016. I'm much better with it now. But if I have to be fully honest and transparent about it, is we all get so busy, and I still am guilty of this, that sometimes we don't justify the time to do that. Is that fair? Like, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. You are so spot on. I've had to audit myself, and
Yeah.
I recommend everybody doing that. There was a period in my life when I was depressed, I was anxious, and I really had to audit my habits. What I was doing the first thing in the morning, straight to social media, straight to distraction, straight to something shiny, straight to work. And it was causing me anxiety right when I wake up. So I changed that habit. First thing now, pray, 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 pray. Then I sit, just like you're saying, sit silently, get some mental clarity, right? And now I've actually committed this year to read the Bible front to back. I've never done that before, but I really wanted to try it.
Good.
The thing about it is, I'm doing it at night, and I think I'm 300 or so pages in.
Wow.
I'm actually addicted to it. You know why?
Good. Why?
Instead of anxiety.
Yes.
Plus, you're reading it, and then I have a version of the Bible where it has, notes, and then I read that and read some like background, get some idea of what's, behind the scenes a little bit, and it gives me a little bit additional clarity. And then I think about it, and that's what I go to sleep with now. It's not my phone, it's not
Wow.
distraction.
Wow.
going to bed with that and thinking about it,
Mhm.
can I tell you I sleep so much better? Holy cow. Like, sleep so much better.
Wow.
And it's made me a better leader, a better everything, because I show up differently.
Mm.
Differently. When you put God first into your life,
Mhm.
it changes you.
Yeah.
And it's really easy as leaders. I run a company, I get it. It's really easy to put everything else first.
Yeah.
But watch what happens when you put the Lord first and
Mhm.
actually allow his word to soak into your brain, into your heart, into your life.
Yes.
Won't be the same. Forget about anxiety. I don't even have anxiety anymore. It's a thing. When I think about anxiety, it's like me talking about somebody else.
Mm.
That must have been somebody else. That couldn't have been me. Just try it. It's free. Everything we're talking about is free.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
wonderful, though. It's wonderful. I think it's a great reminder for all the people who are listening that maybe even did that as a routine, like you're doing, but maybe got away from it. I mean, because let's face it, I think that all of us can take a look at things and say, gosh, we were really good with this and these seasons of our life. But sometimes we're in the thick of it and we do allow that anxiety to seep in and don't take control back over of releasing it and doing the practices that you're talking about. Like, when are you spending time with the Lord? Are you making sure you're having conversations with the Lord throughout the day? I think that's the other thing too. I think that sometimes people think it has to be this like very specific, whether it's a prayer or a situation. I say, the Lord is letting you know that he is your best friend and he's your father, and he wants to have a personal relationship with you. And so what that means is that it's like if you had your best friend next to you sitting in the car driving to the grocery store. Would you talk to your best friend? Well, yeah. And when I heard that analogy years ago, I thought, oh, that's so true. Now, I feel like I always talk to the Lord. You know what I mean? Like, I might have this conversation just thinking of something and then, giving it to him or asking an opinion or whatever too. But again, that's not the norm for most people. They don't think of that. They might think I'm going to sit in prayer. It's going to be like this structured situation. And they don't think of that like, hey, no, the Lord wants to have a relationship with you, which means it's like if you had a guest in your home and you never spoke to them, but they're right there. They're in the living room. They're in the living room sitting right there. And you just keep walking by doing your thing, but you never acknowledge them. That's
Mhm.
unfortunately what it's like when you don't acknowledge the Lord, when you just don't have conversation with the Lord, when you don't have time with the Lord, or when you're doing your day-to-day business and you're in the kitchen making lunch, like say you work from home or you're coming home or whatever, or you're in the office, but you're doing your thing. Take some time just to think about even your day and kind of give it to the Lord. Or if you have a question, present it to the Lord. We don't think that it should be a fluid thing. And reality is he wants it to be a fluid thing. He wants it to be, you're in the car, you can speak to him. You're taking a walk, you can speak to him. And not to be an overwhelming thing, just to be like, how would you be with your best friend with you throughout the day or a guest in your home throughout the day? You would not ignore them. And I don't know, that gave me such a different perspective of what the Lord is hoping for in a relationship with us, that it's not overly structured, that it's not only in certain times, that it only can be during certain ways. No, that's all those rules that don't really apply. He just wants to have this personal relationship with you. And when you have that, it allows him to speak to you in all these different ways we've talked about today. Where you can hear from him, you can feel something, you can something can really touch you, and it can give you an answer to frankly something you've asked the Lord. Now, let's be honest about this though. There are times, where we are feeling a little bit desperate for something. And, yes, we spoke about when the student is taking a test, the teacher is silent, but let's be honest too. Sometimes we're asking questions, we're needing answers, we're needing clarity, and the time just keeps going by. And you're like, okay, I need something, it's always so hard. And as a person, I can tell you, I've been through that plenty of times where I'm not a patient person by nature. Shocking.
Same.
Um,
Same.
okay, so again, something else I'm intentional about. But sometimes I am known for what I call negotiating with God. Now, everyone laughs about that, including God. But I will negotiate with God, and I'll say, God, okay, listen to me. I literally just talk to him like this. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen. we've got to do something here. What do you want to do here? I haven't gotten a sign, even a small one. I don't know what's going on here, but something's got to move. Like the deadline is approaching. What are we doing? And I do get impatient. I do. And the reality is I have to be reminded by other people around me, even if I don't like it, it is God's timing. So sometimes we have to be willing to surrender it, whatever it is, and we will have to move on with our life in some way, shape, or form. And we may not get an answer for a period of time. Or, I don't know, sometimes maybe not at all. But, and that is frustrating. But it's not, I have to be reminded myself from others, like the Lord hasn't forsaken you, and not to be in a situation where, you're sitting there stressing out about the fact that you haven't heard from him, right? Or you feel like there's no clarity. And so, but isn't that the truth? One of the hardest things for us to do is trust the timing and to wait. You speak into that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, 100%. I just try to remind myself that I'm the mouse in the field. I can only see what's in front of me. I can't see much else, right? But I know that he has that Hawkeye vision, that he can see 100, a million, whatever it is, steps in front. And I just try to trust that as much as possible. Of course, it's easier said than done because I am not a patient person. I try to be. I'm
Right.
just not naturally. I want it yesterday with everything.
Yeah.
So I try to lean into that and just know that there must be a reason for this. And every day I tell myself, this must mean something huge is happening tomorrow. Every single day, something huge. I can't wait to unwrap that present that I know is waiting for me tomorrow. It's just there waiting. So I love that. Melissa, where can people find you online, my friend, and do business with you?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you can find us on our website, which is Melissa Whitaker, INTL. It's like international abbreviated, Melissa Whitaker International, Melissa Whitaker, INTL.com. You can also reach us out at 847-845-4922. But definitely, I would recommend anyone listening today, if you want any support or even some free resources that we do offer, take a gander over to the website and just sign up for those free resources. We would love to get that out to you and just support you in any way we can.
I love that. Melissa, thank you so much for being a great guest on the show. I think my one big takeaway is let God be your business partner. Talk to him as frequently as you can. He is there. He wants a relationship with you. You might as well take advantage of it because he has known you since before you were even formed in the womb. So I think that is a perfect reminder for all of us today as we live in this crazy environment of distraction and discombobulation and uncertainty, that we do have something that is certain, and that is a God above us who loves us unconditionally. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being a fantastic guest on the show. And thank you for everyone who tuned in today and watched this episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. Guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a review on your favorite platform so that more listeners see the value in tuning in and changing their lives as well. We will catch you on the next episode. Take care.